There is a tree growing on the side of nearly every road in the eastern and central United States. Red, fuzzy clusters of berries pointing straight up at the sky like little crimson candle flames. You have walked past this tree. You have driven past it, probably in the last week, and almost certainly in the last summer of your life. But if you reach up, snap one of those clusters off the branch, drop it in a pitcher of cold water, wait 30 minutes, and pour it through a piece of cheesecloth, what comes out is a pitcher of tart pink lemonade. Free. Every summer. For the rest of your life. The strangest part of this story is not that the plant exists. The strangest part is that the people who lived on this land before us drank this exact beverage for centuries, and somehow, almost nobody in this country today has any idea what they are looking at. This is Staghorn Sumac, and this is the story of how a $5 billion American lemonade industry quietly let one of the most useful wild plants in North America become invisible. Let me start at the beginning. Sumac is the kind of plant you have absolutely seen and never registered. It grows along highways. It grows along railroad tracks. It grows in old fields, on the edges of forests, and on the lots that no one is doing anything with. In autumn, it turns the most violent shade of orange and scarlet of any plant in the eastern half of the country, which is the one moment of the year when people occasionally point and ask what that is, and then they keep driving. The species we care about today is called Rhus typhina. The common name is Staghorn sumac, because the new branches are covered in soft rust-colored fuzz, exactly the way a young deer's antlers are covered in velvet before they harden. Run your hand up one, and you understand the name in under a second. A mature Staghorn sumac stands about 15 to 20 feet tall, sometimes a little more. The leaves are long and feathery, with anywhere from 9 to 31 little leaflets running down each stem, each one toothed along the edge like a small saw. In summer, the leaves are green. In late September and October, they go a scarlet color you can see from a mile down the road. But the part that matters for this story is the cone. Starting in midsummer, each female Staghorn sumac grows tight upward pointing clusters of small fuzzy berries at the tips of the branches. The clusters are red. Genuinely, deeply red. Dusty, velvety, and the size of a clenched fist or larger. They look like something between a torch and an antler. And those clusters are the entire reason you are here. Those fuzzy little red berries are coated in 2 acids. One is malic acid, the same acid that gives green apples their sharpness. The other is ascorbic acid, which you know better as vitamin C. The combination produces something that genuinely tastes like pink lemonade. That is not marketing language. That is the actual flavor profile. If you blindfolded somebody and handed them a cold glass of properly made sumac water, they would tell you it was lemonade, and they would not be wrong. This is not new information. This is, in fact, the oldest possible information. Indigenous people across the eastern and midwestern halves of this continent have been drinking sumac water for a very long time. The Iroquois drank it. The Cherokee drank it and had their own word for the cold tart drink it made. The Ojibwe drank it. The Menominee, the Potawatomi, and the Algonquin in what is now Quebec, all of them harvested the red berry cones in late summer, soaked them in cool water, and drank the result for hydration, for vitamin C, and for the simple reason that it tasted good on a hot day. They also dried the cones and stored them whole through the winter. Pull one out in February, drop it in water, wait an hour, strain it, and you have summer in a cup in a country with snow on the ground. That is the kind of preserved food system that goes back thousands of years on this land. None of this is folklore. This is documented ethnobotany, written into university extension publications and tribal records. The plant has a name in dozens of indigenous languages on this continent, and most of those names translate to something close to sour, or red, or, if you go far enough, the lemonade tree. Almost no American kid grows up knowing what it is, which raises a question: how does that happen? The lemonade industry in the United States moves about $5 billion a year. Powdered lemonade mix, lemon juice concentrate, single-serve bottles in coolers at every gas station, the pink stuff at every kid's stand in July. All of it built on the same one fruit, the lemon, which is not native to this country, has to be grown in a handful of warm states, or imported from Mexico and Argentina, and is, in fact, one of the most water- and labor-intensive citrus crops in the world. Meanwhile, a plant that produces something almost indistinguishable from that same flavor is growing free, on roadsides, in nearly every state east of the Rockies, plus most of the Midwest, the Great Plains, and a long way into the Northeast and Canada. If you count the closely related smooth sumac, which has the same edible red berries and the same lemonade properties, the genus covers almost the entire continental United States. The only places you genuinely cannot find a red-berried sumac are Hawaii and a few of the driest pockets of the deep Southwest. 48 states have one or the other. So why have you never heard of it? The simple answer is that nobody is selling it to you. A wild plant that produces a finished beverage with 30 minutes of cold water and zero processing is not something you can put a logo on. It cannot be patented. It cannot be scaled into a factory in Florida. It does not need a supply chain or a distributor or an aisle at the grocery store. So nobody has any financial reason to teach you about it. And in the absence of somebody actively teaching you, in 2 or 3 generations a plant that was a household staple becomes invisible. That is the actual mechanism, not a conspiracy, just the slow erasure of anything that does not generate a recurring transaction. But here is what is interesting about that erasure. The plant is still there. It never stopped growing. It is on your street right now, almost certainly within a quarter mile of where you are sitting. So let me show you how to identify it, because this is the part where you stop watching, walk outside, and find one. Staghorn sumac shows up reliably in 3 places: the shoulder of a country road or a state highway, the edge of any old field that is not being mowed, and the disturbed ground around new construction, abandoned lots, train tracks, and road cuts. It is what botanists call an early successional species, which is a polite way of saying it moves in fast when humans tear up the soil and then leave it alone for a few years. Look up. The tree is usually somewhere between 6 and 20 feet tall. It grows in clumps, not single trunks, because the roots send up new shoots and form colonies. So if you find one sumac, you will find 10 of them, all connected underground. The leaf shape is the dead giveaway, a long central stem with 9 to 31 little tooth-edged leaflets running down either side. Botanists call this pinnately compound. You can call it a feather. If you have ever seen an ash tree leaf, sumac looks like an ash leaf that has been stretched out and given more teeth. Run your hand up a new branch. The new growth, the part that grew this year, is covered in soft rust-colored hairs. That fuzz is the staghorn in the name. It feels like the velvet on the antlers of a young buck. No other small tree in the eastern United States feels like that. Now find the cone. From late June through September, the female plants put up dense pyramid-shaped clusters of small fuzzy red berries at the tips of the branches, pointing straight up. Each cone is about the size of a clenched fist, sometimes considerably larger. Each individual berry is covered in tiny crimson hairs. When the cone is ripe, you can scrape it gently with your thumb and a faint dry lemon-scented dust comes off on your skin. That dust is your acid. That dust is your drink. A few things to confirm before you plug. The berries should be deep red, fuzzy to the touch, and held upright in a tight cone. If they are loose, drooping, white, grey, or hanging like grapes, walk away. We will get to why in a minute. The leaves should be toothed, not smooth. The new wood should be fuzzy, not bare. Once you have those 3 things together, you are looking at Staghorn sumac. If you want to be even more certain, taste the dust on the outside of one berry. Not chew the berry, not swallow it. Just touch the outside of the cone with the tip of your tongue. It should taste like a lemon drop dragged through a little dirt, tart, citric, slightly astringent. If it tastes like nothing at all, the rain washed the acid off and you need to find a cone on a tree that is not directly under the drip line, or wait 2 more dry days. If it tastes bitter or burns your tongue, that is not sumac, and you should put the plant down. Now the part you actually came for, the recipe. You need 3 things: a cluster or 2 of fresh red sumac cones, a pitcher of cold or room temperature water, a piece of cheesecloth, a clean cotton t-shirt, or a fine mesh strainer. That is the entire equipment list. Pluck the cones on a dry afternoon, ideally at least a day or two after the last rain. The acid you want is sitting on the outside of the berries in the form of dust, and rain washes that dust straight into the dirt. If your neighborhood just got a thunderstorm, wait. The plant will still be there tomorrow. And try to harvest from a tree that is not 3 feet from a heavily trafficked highway, because anything on the surface of those berries is now part of your drink. A road shoulder 20 or 30 feet back from traffic is fine. A median strip directly in the breath of every diesel truck on the interstate is not. When you bring the cones inside, do not wash them. This is the single most counterintuitive instruction in the whole process. You see a plant from the side of the road, and your instinct is to rinse it. But the moment you rinse the cone under the tap, you wash away the very thing you came for. The malic acid and the vitamin C are not inside the berries. They are on the velvet of the hairs. Brush off any obvious dirt or bugs with your fingers, but leave the powder alone. Break one cluster up into a large pitcher or a clean glass jar. You want about 1 packed cup of berries for every 4 cups of water. The ratio is forgiving. More berries, more flavor. Fewer berries, lighter drink. Crush the berries gently with the back of a wooden spoon. You are not pulping them. You are just bruising the surface so the acid releases into the water. Pour cold or room temperature water over the top. The temperature here matters more than anything else in the entire process. Vitamin C breaks down with heat. Boil sumac and you destroy the vitamin C, you destroy a chunk of the flavor, and you pull the bitter tannins out of the stems instead. Hot sumac tea is a real beverage, but it is not the one we are making. Cover the pitcher. Let it sit for 30 minutes if you are impatient, 2 hours if you want a proper drink, or overnight in the refrigerator if you want a deep ruby pink liquid that tastes like cranberry and lemon had a child together. Strain through cheesecloth or a fine mesh strainer. The little hairs from the berry coat can irritate the throat if you swallow them, so this step is not optional. Strain twice if you want to be careful. Sweeten to taste. Sugar, honey, maple syrup, agave, stevia. Whatever you would put in a glass of regular lemonade, pour over ice. That is the entire recipe. You now have, in your kitchen, a beverage that human beings on this continent have been making for at least 1,000 years, for free, from a plant that grew on your block. Now the part nobody can skip. The reason most foraging videos get a nervous edit from a lawyer before they go up. There is another plant called poison sumac. It exists. It is real. It is genuinely dangerous to touch. It is in the same broader family as Staghorn sumac, and the name alone keeps people away from a perfectly safe plant for their entire lives. So let us settle this in one breath. Red berries, safe. White or pale grey berries, dangerous. That is the whole rule. If you cannot remember anything else from this video, remember that one sentence. Staghorn sumac, the plant we have been talking about for the last 20 minutes, grows tight upward, pointing cones of bright red fuzzy berries. The cones look like little crimson torches sitting on top of the branches. Poison sumac grows loose, drooping clusters of pale white or greyish berries that hang downward like tiny grapes. The leaves are smooth around the edge, not toothed. The young twigs are smooth, not fuzzy. And poison sumac does not even live where Staghorn sumac lives. Poison sumac is a wetland plant. It grows in bogs, fens, swamps, and standing water. If your feet are dry and you are looking at a small tree with red upright cones, you are not looking at poison sumac. It is not in your environment. The two plants are not even confused by accident if you actually look at them. White and drooping versus red and upright, wetland versus roadside. That is the entire difference. The reason poison sumac has a fearsome reputation is real. Its sap contains the same allergenic oil as poison ivy, called urushiol, and brushing against it gives some people a rash that can last weeks. So the plant earns its name. It just is not the plant we are talking about, and it does not live next to the plant we are talking about. Red, upright, fuzzy, dry ground. You are safe. Once you have made your first pitcher of sumac lemonade, and you stop being suspicious of free things, the door opens wider than you expect. Dried sumac cones store for years. People have been doing this for centuries. Pluck cones in September. Lay them on a screen in a dry indoor place out of direct sun, and in 3 or 4 weeks, you have shelf-stable lemonade for the entire winter. In mid-January, drop a dried cone in cold water, wait an hour, strain it, and you are drinking the summer of the previous year. There is nothing quite like that taste in February. The same cold, steeped liquid, reduced down slowly in a saucepan at low heat after the cold extraction is finished, becomes a tart pink syrup. Pour it into seltzer for an Italian soda. Pour it into a cocktail anywhere you would normally squeeze a lemon. Pour it over yogurt or vanilla ice cream the way you would use a berry compote. The flavor is closer to a hibiscus and lemon hybrid than to anything you have had before. And the ground berry hairs, separated from the seeds and dried completely, are the same red sumac powder that has been on the spice rack of every Middle Eastern kitchen for 1,000 years, sprinkled on hummus, rubbed on chicken before grilling, mixed with thyme and sesame seeds and olive oil into the spice blend called za'atar. That spice on the shelf at your grocery store and that roadside tree at the end of your block are the same plant. They cross an ocean to meet each other on your kitchen counter. Here is the small detail nobody mentions, and it tends to change how people see this. Once you start noticing sumac, you cannot unsee it. You will be driving down a highway in late August, glance out the passenger window, and see $10,000 worth of homemade lemonade growing in the median strip. You will look up and notice a row of 40-foot sumac colonies in the side yard of an apartment complex you have parked at for years. The plant does not change. You change. The world has always been arranged for the person who knows how to look at it. Which brings us back to where we started. There is a tree growing on the side of nearly every road in the eastern and central United States. Red, fuzzy clusters of berries pointing straight up at the sky like little crimson candle flames. You have walked past it. You have driven past it. Almost everyone hearing this has driven past one in the last 7 days without registering it once. Except now you know what it is. Now you know how to identify it, how to use it, how to keep it for winter, and what it has been doing here, quietly, for centuries before anyone started selling you a powdered version of the same flavor in a plastic tub. This weekend, take a walk. Look up, find one. That single pitcher of pink lemonade, made for free, from a plant you used to be blind to, is the small moment when a road you have driven 1,000 times stops being a road and starts being a pantry.